Hello, everyone. Look who is with me. I have Kavan Smith with me, and he is spending time with us on his day off, which is so lovely. We appreciate that. How are you?
I'm doing great, and as I explained to you, it's not
Yeah.
really a day off. I have my kids, so this is a break from being dad. So I'm actually happy to be here.
Oh, I love it. You have two boys? Is that
I
what
do,
you had said?
yeah,
Yes.
two boys.
Which very similar to your character, Boone, with his two boys.
Yeah, my guys are just a little bit younger, and it's funny. When I got the show and saw that there were two boys in it, the first thing I said to my kids was like, "Oh my God, Dad's gonna do a cowboy movie," and they were like, "Really? You? A cowboy?" So I
Aw,
was, yeah, they took a little shot at me, but that's okay. I didn't mind. But Peter Benson, who directed it, who's a
yes.
friend of mine, he called, and the first thing I wanted to talk to him about was the scenes with the boys because I was like, I have boys, I get boys, I know how I want to play these scenes. So we got to. I really felt like when we did the scenes with the boys, which were some of my favorite, that I could really draw on the relationships I have with my kids.
Right.
Yeah,
They were some of my favorite scenes, especially because you talked about tough stuff like death, you know,
yeah,
and being there for each other as brothers. I love that. They were good.
they were.
And the boys, the young actors, oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Oh,
they
such
were
such
they were
nice kids
so
too.
I'm sorry, believable. Like the
Yeah,
whole like I felt like I was in watching, like I was peeping in somebody's window watching when
yeah,
the movie was just unraveling. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like just so natural. It all flowed. It was believable. It was really a beautiful story.
it
Yes.
was, yeah,
So
yeah.
before we dive in, though, I
Okay.
did want to ask, did you have a favorite cowboy in your life? Is there a cowboy that you ever looked up to? John Wayne?
John, I know I'm old, but John Wayne was a little bit before my time, but I
I
really
like John Wayne.
no, I know, I definitely
Yeah,
like
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
likes John Wayne, and I
yeah.
did too, but I'm more of a Clint Eastwood fan. I loved Clint Eastwood, and I also, just on a small little shout out, I always really loved Kevin Costner in Silverado. I thought he was so fun and exciting, and so that's always somewhere that I know Clint is the more quiet and
Yeah, yeah.
deadly guy, but I
Mhm.
really thought that Kevin Costner was so much fun as that kind of rootin' tootin' young cowboy in Silverado. So those are my two choices.
Okay. So I'm wondering, did you by any chance like think like when you heard that you were going to be a cowboy, just like you said, you were telling your boys, what did you think in your mind? Like, how are you going to play it? Like, I'm a cowboy.
Well, I actually come from sort of cowboy country. Not that I was
Ooh,
ever much of a cowboy, and it's not super foreign to me to see it. I thought that I could. I wasn't sure about the cowboy hats. I've never thought the hat looks very good on me, so I was a little insecure about what the hat would look like. But the rest, I thought. I mean, jeans and a t-shirt, or jeans and cowboy boots. I thought that would be kind of fun because Lee is very coiffed. Let's
he
put it.
is.
Yeah.
He
So
is.
this boy Boone is definitely. I mean, he wasn't clean shaven. We did some scenes with t-shirts and ball caps, and so it felt a little. In some ways, it was closer to who I am because I'm a bit more broken down in my real life than Lee is. So I did enjoy that, but yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little worried about whether or not I could pull off, like, put on a cowboy hat and actually not look like a yutz. So I didn't see anybody comment the word yutz last night, so I think it was a success.
No, they loved it, and people were asking about the hat. Like, did you get to keep the cowboy hat? Did you get to take it home?
No, there was some big ticket items. There's always on shows like this, there's always, I think, the hope that maybe there'd be more. So
Mhm.
typically speaking, oftentimes costumes will hold on to a few things. The
Right.
boots, I think they were like $400 or $500 cowboy boots, which I think is pretty standard for a good
Yeah,
pair of
yeah,
cowboy boots these days.
yeah.
And then the hat was, I think it was like $300 or something. So they're not just gonna give them away. But I probably wouldn't wear it.
Okay.
I don't think in my personal life. The boots maybe, but I don't know about the hat.
So I don't know, memento, but then again, maybe that's not your
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, it could
Um,
be a memento.
I have a question though about your because I love clothes. I always pay attention. Sometimes I'll have the costumers on. I've had Barbara on from When
Oh,
Calls Heart.
oh yeah,
She's
she's great.
amazing.
Yeah.
But, you had did I see a Santana t-shirt? Like, was that yours or was it theirs?
No, it was theirs, and I'm surprised because
Oh,
they gave it to me in the costume fitting, and I liked it because I thought it felt more real.
yes,
Graphic tees and stuff like that.
yes,
Oftentimes in lower budget movies, even in big budget movies, you have to get everything cleared
yeah,
before you can use it.
right.
But I guess this one was cleared, and we went with it, and I really liked it because it added a sense of you got the sense he lived in that.
Yes,
Some of
yes.
his clothes looked like he wears those things a lot, and I
And
like that because I wear the same stuff all the time.
it was real. You weren't
Yeah,
like, a fake cowboy. How about your uniform? The reason what caught my attention was I didn't know if it was authentic or not, but if it wasn't, and you have a chance, I'll give you 1 minute to answer.
mhm,
What I loved about it was when they were in like the center of the town, you had people walking up and down the street. There was a like I'm going to say police officer walking down the street in the same exact uniform
yeah,
with a gun and all. So was
yeah.
that real? What was that?
Yeah, that was on purpose, that was an extra in the right
Uh-huh.
uniform, and as far as I know, our uniform was legit. Everything from the badges to the gun, everything was totally legit, and,
Yeah.
it was I had flashbacks because I did a role years ago, a sci-fi role on a show that I loved called Eureka, and I got to play
Mhm.
this little character, Deputy Andy, who was this sweetheart who was a robot who had a crush on a house computer, and I had flashbacks because I wore essentially the same costume,
Right, right,
and
right.
I loved that character. So it was a natural fit. I really liked it, but it's been a while since I've been in that outfit. So, or,
You've been in all kinds of roles. I love that about you. Like, and you know what? Every time, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. Every time I watch, you really like make the role your own. It's not like sometimes some actors, for me, kind of seem the same in each movie. But
Mhm.
even on all the Hallmark movies you've done, every character is different. You've played a dad before, a
Yeah,
single dad. You had a daughter when you
yeah,
were the chef, but you
yeah.
were totally different, like a totally different guy. How do you do that? Like, what is it you do to make yourself prepared and ready and be a different person?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a self-indulgent actor, I'll tell you. I usually
Indulge. We want to hear
okay,
it.
I'll tell you. I think one of the first things I do when I read a script is I go through the whole thing really quick, and even though I don't read a script with the intention of changing lines, when I read it, I try and say some of the lines in a voice that feels comfortable on me. It may not be me, but it's something that comes out of me comfortably. And then that sort of tonality and that sound that I hear
Right.
starts to connect me eventually to the character. So I usually just I connect to the character through running the lines over and over and over. Everybody prepares differently.
Right.
I need to know that so well that I can completely forget about it on the day and go wherever I want to go and do whatever I want without. I just try not to change too much, really, unless I'm given a green light to do so. But then I just go crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't want to change anybody else's cues, and I don't want to have
Right.
to change anybody else's intentions. But for me, I've always tried to find a few scenes in each movie or each episode of a TV show that I can kind of grab onto and then just keep drilling the lines. It's almost like hypnosis in some ways. You keep going, and the more you do it, the more ideas you get. And before it's
Oh,
the first time you read it, you're like, I don't get this. They've missed the point. This is a poorly written line. This makes no sense. I don't know where to go with this. But then by the time you get to the 200th time you've run it through your head, it's like, oh yeah, I got so many ideas now.
okay.
And even though it may not change that scene or those lines, it
Mhm.
may change something down the road. So I'm thank you for saying that. I do try and aim to. It's hard to always be different because you're still
Yeah.
you're filtering
Right.
this character through you. So there will be similarities, of course, but I do try to be different. Like I
Yeah.
do think Boone is very different from Lee, for
He
example,
is. He was very.
or Deputy Andy, any of those. I think they're, distinct differences, but I start with the lines.
Which is like, that's fascinating. And you know what? I'm not surprised. And I don't think any of our viewers will be either, because that's what I was trying to say. I feel like I had a little window
Hmm.
into that house and what was going on, because it was like natural. It just flowed. There was a cute line, and I wasn't sure if it was part of the script. And I'm
Hmm.
just asking, and I don't want to give away too much. I,
Tell
of
me.
course, saw it yesterday. And then, of
Yeah.
course, it will be on Friday in Canada. So we have
Yeah.
some viewers that haven't seen it. But
Okay.
there is the one cute line where you put your younger son in your lap,
Yeah.
and you're saying how heavy he is. He feels like a baby rhino.
Yeah.
Did you just say that, or was that a line?
100% I made that up.
Of
So
course you
in
did.
the scene, I'm supposed to just sit down at the table with him and have this conversation, and I immediately turned to Peter, and who is also a father and has two
Yes.
kids, and I said, I would totally pick up my kid and put him on my lap on this scene. Like I would totally pick him up and hold him tight and
Sure.
play with him and stuff. And I'm very playful with my kids. I'm kind of
Mhm.
playful just in general, but
Yeah.
so with the young actor in that scene, I was changing that line every time. So it was like, oh my God, it's like picking up a baby elephant. Oh my goodness, it's like picking up a baby hippopotamus.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was keeping him entertained because he didn't know what I was going to call him.
Right. Right.
And so it kind of kept him listening. Those the two boys we had were so good. The younger one was precocious, but was like giving you gold all the time. Like you just didn't know what he was going to do, and he would always did something interesting. The older kid, sorry, I just don't have their names right here with me, but the older child, he was so. Do you remember the scene where we're sitting on the couch and we're having a heart to heart about mom?
Yes.
He listened like we did the scene over and over, and I was trying to do my thing, and
Hmm.
he would just look at me. And if you go back, if you ever get the opportunity again, I haven't seen the edit myself, but he was so intensely listening. And actors, most 98% of actors wait. They wait for their line and then they do what they're going to do. But he was so active listening that
Hmm.
he went along for the ride each time, and it made my job so much easier because I could concentrate on what I was doing,
Right. Right. Right.
where he was just staring at me like my kid would stare at me if I was
Yes.
talking to
Yes.
him. Yeah, it was great. It was
They
really
are.
wonderful. Yeah.
And the actress who played Erin, right? I think that
Yeah.
was her name in the story. And actually, you had an opportunity to meet her before, because she was on When Calls the
Yeah.
Heart.
I found that out when we were shooting. She came
Yeah.
up to me and told me that. And I'm like, ooh, we got a lot of kids on that show. I don't remember all of them. There are
They
a lot.
I think it was the episode, and I think all the girls got to stay at your house. Like
Oh,
you hosted the girls. It was one of the Christmas movies.
yeah. I think she
Yeah.
said, I don't know if she had a name on the show, but she said that she was a Christmas orphan.
Yes.
And
And
I
she did
do.
have a name, and I don't remember what her
Oh,
name
okay.
was on the show.
I
She had a little sister too.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
do remember that episode. I do remember shooting that, but
Well,
I didn't remember her at the time. But she was great.
there's been 100 episodes.
I know, isn't that crazy? We had a dinner. We had a celebratory dinner the other night. On
Yeah,
Saturday night, we all went out for dinner. The executives came up, and our producers came up, and the cast went out, and
it
it
was
was
a good
really
night.
nice. It was such a rare thing. I mean, there's not a lot of shows that go and do 100 episodes, so we all gave ourselves a little pat on the back, and a few of us got up and made speeches, and at the end of pretty much each speech, it was like we want to do 100 more.
Yes, so we want that. When
Yeah,
I talk about it, I say, "Oh, that can happen in season 17," and people laugh,
yeah,
and I'm like, "You think I'm joking? I'm not."
yeah. No, I would have thought people were joking. A funny story. I told this in my speech actually the other night.
Mhm,
On my very first day, Martin Cummins, who plays Gowan, was
mhm.
sitting down and we were chatting. Even though we live in the same city, I didn't know him all that well. So we were chatting and getting to know each other. And he said to me, he goes, Cav, never quit this show. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean never quit the show? Not that I was going to quit the show, but he's like,
Right,
don't
right,
quit.
right.
He's like, this show's going to go for a long time. And I was like, how do you know this? I don't know. I just know. And he called it. That was my very first day, first episode of season 2. And he was bang on. And I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I do know everybody
Mhm.
wants to stay. And I know that this cast really, again, this was in my speech the other night. I was like, it's so rare, not just to go 100 episodes, but just on Thursday, we were all sitting together. There was probably about 12 to 15 actors. And we were all just laughing and having fun, and we're all friends. A lot of us hang out outside of work hours,
Mhm.
like a lot of us. So that's equally rare. So I know everybody wants to keep going. I mean, I hope the fans want us to keep
Me
going. I
too.
hope so. But I know I speak from, or at least a few of us, I can speak for. We want it to go to.
Listen, everybody, I'm sure every single person that's here is also a fan of When Calls the Heart. They agree with you. They want it to go on forever and ever. Now, before I ask any more about Big Sky River, because I love, love, love this movie,
Okay.
I wanted to ask a little bit about your history just with Hallmark itself. So, when I was
Sure.
doing my research, I'm
Mhm.
looking and I think I saw a 2004 movie, and I think
Yeah.
it was called, what I think I have it written over here. What's my notes say? Something about Eve, Christmas Eve, or
Yeah, Eve's Christmas, I think it was called.
yes.
I don't remember it per se. I do remember that I did one, but I think it was a very small role. I think it was just offered out of the blue and says, "Hey, you want to come in for a couple of days?" I think it might have been 2 days or
Right.
something. And I don't remember the character. I don't remember the role. It was a long time ago. I consider the first one I did the one I did with gosh, what was it? Oh, it had the unfortunate title of "Growing the Big One" with Shannon.
Boston. Yes, I do. I know that movie.
Doherty. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. Um, I think I can say this honestly. In every one of these ones that I've done, I've gotten along so well with the lead actress, and that's no different. And that is for me the first time I was really involved in a Hallmark movie. Like
Right, right, right.
got to do my job, and but yeah, the number it's more than I thought. I definitely have done a few more than I thought.
Right, I was counting them and I was like, "Is there 10?" I think there might be 10, and then that doesn't count, like, you were in a couple episodes, or at least I know it was at least 1, I think it was more though, with the garage sale with Lori and
I
Pete.
did one.
I know, and Peter DeLuise was the director. Did you
Yeah,
meet and remember all of that when you came to When Calls the Heart, or no?
absolutely. I will tell you about that. So
Okay.
um, that was an interesting job. Even though I'd done some movies for Hallmark,
Mhm,
I showed up. I had to audition for that one,
mhm.
and they made me. I showed up unshaven. And we did the audition. They sent it to Hallmark right away, and they asked me to shave on the spot and do it again. I was like, really? They can't imagine what I look like without a beard? Anyway, so Peter took me to the bathroom
Mhm.
and basically watched me shave.
Okay.
He did a role, I forget what it was, but he did something where he had to shave so closely every single day, and he had some good tips on how to avoid like little bumps and lesions on the bottom of the chin.
Mhm.
So I had to shave, but then I met Lori, who I'd never worked with before, and I remember because she turned 50 on my very first day, and I remember I made a very inappropriate comment because nowadays this wouldn't stand these days, but I was
Okay.
shocked and I didn't know her, and I'm like, oh my god, you're 50? Like when I was a kid, that's not what 50 looked like.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, "You look incredible for 50." I did it very platonically, like it wasn't
Yeah,
easy or
yeah.
anything. But nowadays, you're not supposed to
Wouldn't
talk
work.
about that kind of thing.
Right, right,
But
right,
she
right.
was very, very nice about it. And then I remember I turned 50 a couple of years ago myself, and she
Uh-huh.
sent me a nice text in reply. So I did do the garage sale, and that was right before I got hired on When Calls. Like I think it was like 6 months before I got hired on When
Oh,
Calls.
wow. And
Yeah.
then now you're Hallmark family. You're just part of the family.
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. I didn't see that happening, and it was. It's a. I've done because I did a lot of sci-fi in my younger years, and I do
Mhm.
know that sci-fi fans can be um, fanatical in a good,
Yes.
usually in a good way.
In a good way. Yes.
Usually,
Yeah.
there's a bit more balance with sci-fi fans. If they don't like you, they'll let you know.
Oh, gee.
So, so I was surprised when I started doing Hallmark stuff that there were a lot, especially for When Calls with the Hardys.
Mhm.
What the difference is between the Hardys and sci-fi is that I could count on one hand the negative things that I've read, and
Mhm.
even though they were kind of like, well, you sort of missed the mark. It wasn't really about that,
Yeah.
but whatever. But by and large, the vast majority of that community is super positive, and they tune in because the show's sort of, built on being hopeful. And I think that,
Yes.
yeah, it's reflected in the kind of feedback we get for the most part.
Right. It
Yeah.
is, and it's a feel-good show, and I love it. I've been a fan since the very first day. I've been
Okay.
a party since day one myself. So now so through all your years with Hallmark, you've had your whole list of wonderful co-stars,
Yeah.
and now you have, Emmanuelle, and she's lovely. She was talking to us about her,
Oh.
as about Tara. We got to talk to Linda too. She came
Oh.
on. Yeah, she's amazing. She has great stories, right? Oh my
She
God.
has great stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were talking, and I was looking on Instagram and watching all her as all this was unraveling, and Emmanuel had wonderful pictures of the two of you behind the scenes kind of stuff cracking up, and I'm like, what was going on? Tell me what it was like to work with her.
Well, she and I worked together once before, years ago, on a show called Mistresses.
Yes.
I played sort of a sleazy bar owner, and she
Yes.
played one of the girls that worked for me. And I had seen her from time to time and knew who she was, and I knew her name. But I'd never really met her prior to Mistresses. And then we worked together, and we spent a lot of time laughing, sitting in the chairs waiting for scenes and stuff like that. So when they told me it was going to be her, I knew right away that we would get along, because I just remembered how easygoing. I think one of my prerequisites, when I know that I'm going to get along with somebody, it's when they they're good at their job, but they don't take themselves too seriously as a person. You know,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
she's not a diva at all. That's one of the
No.
things I like most about Pascal. Um, but Emmanuel was. So when I found out she got it, I was really happy. She's a horse person, big time horse person. So I knew that, because I'm at best, I'm so so. She's great, so I knew one of us would be able to pull that off. But on our very first day, she's so warm. She's so unpretentious. She's smart. I tend to rattle on quite quickly sometimes, trying to make
Uh-huh.
jokes and trying to keep people entertained and stuff, because it
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
my day more fun. And sometimes people don't love it, but she
yeah. Oh
did.
no.
Yeah, she ran with it, and we laughed all day long, pretty much every single day. We didn't have a single issue. She was a terrific actor. She's very prepared. Um, each scene, she didn't want to run lines or anything beforehand. She's like, "No, let's just go. I'm ready." And I was like, "Great, I'm ready too. Let's see what happens." And I think, like you said earlier, with the scenes with the boys and stuff like that, I try and be as natural as I can. That's just sort of the way I try and act. And she is very similar. So when we got together, it was really whatever I do, she just rolls with it. Whatever she does, I just rolled with it, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed working with her. She was. I can't say enough good things about
I mean, as a viewer, it was great. I mean, she was the same way. Her scenes with Tara and Aaron were just as heartfelt. She was just as natural.
her.
And
Yeah,
I was like, this is a great family movie. I
yeah,
mean, there's something for everyone. I'm like, oh, I like this. Even though there was sensitive subjects in there, it was done beautifully. The writing, how they took that novel and then put it into script, that was
I
amazing.
agree.
So I wanted to talk about your writing. So I know that Emmanuel, she loves horses, and
Yeah.
she talked about her horses, and so did you have to use any stunt doubles, or was that all you?
Well, I've done some horseback riding, and I've
Yes.
done quite a few scenes of When Calls on Horses, and
Yes.
a few other westerns and stuff in the past. But I've never really taken off. Like, I don't just go
Mhm.
running full speed, and I'm not young anymore, so there's risk of falling off at those speeds. And I knew, because she was so good. She's like a show jumper.
Yes.
She has a horse. So I knew that they were going to want to be close up on her face, and using taking advantage of the fact that she's a natural on the
Right,
horse.
right.
So I knew they were going to want her going full speed, And I said right at the beginning, because they asked, they're like, "How good are you with horses?" And I'm like, "I'm good with scenes. I can trot in and out, no problem, very
Mhm.
comfortable. But full speed, I will look like a putz." So, so you want? I know you're gonna probably want a real cowboy for those days. So they did bring in a real cowboy who was
Okay.
such a nice, not such a nice young man, and he was fantastic on the horse too. I mean, he's a pro.
That's all
So it
right.
made
It
so it
still
made me
looked
look
like
good.
you. It did. It looked like you. It was seamless.
Yeah.
I had on Jesse Hutch once,
Yes.
not too
Yeah.
long ago. Oh my God, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And he does stunt. He just said to me, "Oh, I was in Virgin River doing stunts." He does stunts. He's also a
Wow.
stunt man. Yes.
Oh.
I know. You could have had Jesse come on for you.
Yeah. Well, stunt work, I don't know if anybody knows this, but stunt work pays well. So if you're an unemployed actor, or if you're trying to make it as an actor, and you've got some physical ability,
Mhm.
you can make good money as a stuntman, and it's far more consistent work.
He loves it. He said it was great. I'm like, wow. So I was like, oh, I wonder if that I'm joking. I know it wasn't Jesse. I'm just kidding, teasing
Oh yeah. All right. It wasn't. No.
you, which is funny. How about the dancing?
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Okay, so was it choreographed? Was it you two just
No,
doing your
no,
thing?
I was a little worried about that because my actual two-step is not that developed. So I was curious what they were gonna do and what they wanted, and I was so relieved when Peter was like, "What I want is fun. I want it upbeat, up
Yeah.
tempo. I want you guys having fun." So I was like, "Okay, well, I can do that." I used to love going out dancing when I was a kid. So, well, not a kid, but
I know.
a younger
Young man.
gentleman, and so it was. It felt very natural. It was really fun. They had some decent music for us. They had a kind of a bouncy
Yeah,
quality to it.
it
So
is.
they
Yeah.
just said they just played it. And oftentimes, what they do in film is you have playback. So they start with the music,
Mhm.
and then they cut the music out once everybody's dancing to the rhythm. So you're kind of all dancing in
Right, right,
sync,
right, right.
and then there's nothing but you talk, so they can record the conversation. But in this one, there wasn't really a lot of talk while the music was playing, so we just ran the music right through, and it really helps because he just brings the tempo up, and you smile and you have fun, and I remember thinking that when we got into the dancing, I was like. I think I'm having fun, so I think it will show that
It
we're all
did.
yeah, we were all having a really good time.
It did.
I think that was our last shoot day, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that made it more fun.
Yeah.
You danced with a beer in your hand.
I did. I wasn't planning to do that.
Smart
They
though.
asked me beforehand, they like, "Do you
Mhm.
wanna have a beer in the scene or not?" And I was like, "Well, we're in a bar, that makes sense. We're being a little more progressive here with the subject matter and stuff. I
Right,
think
right, right, right.
people can handle it, so sure." But then all of a sudden, once we got into it, I'm like, "Oh, there's really no place to put this down without
Mhm.
stepping way out of camera and back." So I'm like,
Yeah,
"All
yeah.
right, I guess we're gonna go." It wasn't on purpose. It
Right.
was really just an accident because I didn't put it down sooner in the scene, so we were kinda stuck with it.
But that was okay because I love that. I noticed it and I'm like, "Oh, look, he's so good. He could dance with a beer in his hand."
Yeah. Well, it's very natural because when I was younger,
Yeah.
that's probably what I would have done.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah,
which was cool.
yeah,
And then the one line, now this I want to know. I'm not trying to give away too much, but I have to know about that line. I won't say the whole thing, but I
okay,
didn't know if it was real or not because I laughed out loud and had to rewind it back.
okay.
When she's nervous to go out on the dance floor and you're like, let's just go and stomp all over each other's toes.
Oddly enough, that was scripted. I have
Well,
to
that was a good line. That
yeah.
was a you line.
Well, there was it was I might have butchered it just a little bit, like I might have
Mhm.
made it mine with a couple of words, but essentially that was the scripted line, and I thought it was great because when you're a young man
Yes.
and you're asking somebody to go dance, not that
Yeah,
I'm young in this movie, but when you sort of work up the moxie to ask somebody to dance, there's always a chance they could say no.
I
So when
know.
she said no, you kind of have to recover somehow. And I
I
thought
know.
that was a really funny recovery, but still gets her out on the dance floor.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. It was
Yes.
cute. It was
Yeah.
actually, if it were a real thing and you were really out on a dance floor and you were afraid, and someone said, just like you said, they said that to me, although I like to dance, I probably would have felt safe and said, okay, because the expectation isn't high to be such a great dancer, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, let's
Exactly.
stop on each other's toes. Do you and your wife go out dancing?
my wife loves to dance, and
Oh,
I don't love to dance so much anymore. She loves to go out with her friends and dance, but we don't do that so much anymore. When we first started dating, we
mhm.
definitely went out a little bit. She dances like Anne Margaret in Viva Las Vegas. In is it
Oh,
Viva Las Vegas? Yeah,
yeah.
it's a little wild. So it's kind of like okay.
Oh
Anyway,
my gosh.
she's not
All right.
gonna love that I let that little tidbit out.
That's
But
okay. We won't tell her. We're not
okay,
gonna tell her. She
all right,
won't know. She won't. It'll
okay,
be our secret. I promise.
okay, all right.
All right. So, what is it that you love the most about this movie? Like, what was your favorite? I'm sure there was a lot in there, but what was something that stands out that was the best thing that
Well,
when you went, yeah, when you think about it, you're like, oh, yeah.
right away when I read the script, I mean, I'll be the first to say Hallmark has a formula. There's an approach
Hmm.
that's a clean, family oriented medium, and I like that. I appreciate that. I'm on board with it, but they are moving some things around and trying to address some more prevalent issues. And I liked the fact that the movie wasn't just boy meets girl because
Right.
it really wasn't. It was really broken family meets broken family,
Yes.
and I love that. I felt that it was a bit more realistic. I thought that the relationship with the two boys and the father was something I could really not relate to because
No.
obviously the wife was fine, but
Yes.
but I just I read it thinking there's a lot of possibilities here. I
Hmm.
liked that it was not just um, super tight to the formula, that they were going to push some boundaries a little bit, and that it got to be a little bit more realistic.
Hmm.
And I did like that. And what I've always liked to do in shows when I have the I guess the authority to do so is
Hmm.
I love the dichotomy between humor and more poignant moments. Like I
Hmm.
love that you can sit with a kid and cry, and then 5 minutes later make him or her laugh.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
those things appeal to me because as an actor, I like to have fun on set. I love to laugh. I love to make other people laugh. I love people when people make me laugh.
Hmm.
Makes the day go so much faster and life is more enjoyable. But as an actor, it's really the difference between both those sort of positions that make it interesting. So I thought that when I read the script, I saw that. I saw how I could infuse humor, but this is real. There's some poignant stuff, like when he talks about his mom passing, and he's talking to his sons about that. It's those are real. Those are
Yeah.
e-
Yeah.
everybody has moments like that in their life, and if they don't yet, they will. So these are universal themes, and I liked the fact that we broached them.
I did too. And as when you first started to talk, I was sitting here thinking, oh, and I also loved, and you when you wound up saying it, I love that there was also the humor. It
Yeah,
wasn't just like you can there could be a rom-com and where the whole thing is silly, but this was serious, yet there was funny things that were and they were real. They weren't like just stuck in there, just to break it up. It really flowed like, kids and behaving with kids
yes,
when you're first meeting someone and you kind of like feel a little out of what you have a death, she has a terrible divorce,
yeah.
it makes funny things happen, that's real. So I
Well,
mean,
that's what I liked about it. It felt real. Like
yeah.
you can have more challenging moments,
Hmm.
handle them like a human, and
Yep.
oftentimes people handle them and they jump back and forth between despair and dealing with it. And I felt like Boone was dealing with it as best he could. He's trying to hold his family together. He makes a lot of jokes and he has a lot of fun, but he's still hurt as well. And I
Yeah.
thought that the movie was a fairly accurate representation of two broken families trying to come together.
It was. And Linda, she's a phenomenal writer. And she was saying that whenever she writes her characters, she wants them to have many different layers because we all do as real humans do.
Sure.
And she gets so sucked into her characters that when she's out there at the grocery store picking up her mail, sometimes she's still in her head with those characters. And I think because they were so well written, that's what made it so easy to turn the book into a movie. It
I think
really,
so too.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I think
love
so.
Yeah. She's lovely too. She said that you were a cowboy at heart with your
Yeah, she told me that too. I don't know
Mhm.
if I buy that, but I appreciated it.
Which is so cute. So we
Yeah.
have some questions that we can ask, I mean, answer, and we could go through and look through them. I think you can scroll too if you want it, and I can too. But
You just asked me. My vision isn't what it used to be. So
okay,
I'll
I
just
will do. Before I do, I had starred early on some comments people were showing you how much love they had for you. But before we do, can I ask, I don't know if you saw my questions. I had given you like a little list of questions and stuff. And
yes.
I had asked at the end, I'm pretty sure I put it in there. There was okay, so Chris McNally on more than one occasion. You know what I'm going to say. On
Hmm.
more than one occasion, I don't know why, and I noticed this. He likes to do impersonations of you. One time, it wasn't even about you. It was about him trying a type of alcohol, and I think it was the Louis whiskey or something. And he imitated you and your excitement for him to try it. So he's always doing impersonations of you. And I thought, well, you have the opportunity here to get him back. Would you like to do one of him?
I'm gonna take the high road. No,
Okay.
and partly because I don't do impressions well. So I Chris is a good friend. I really like Chris. He's
Yeah.
a very, very nice young man, and I enjoy hanging out with him both on set and off. Um, I will, instead of doing an impersonation, I'll give you a little tidbit on
Okay.
Mr. McNally. He has an inability to hold on to money.
Oh.
Well, yeah.
Hmm.
My impersonation of him is this. It's like, oh, here, take my money. Take my money. Take my money. That guy buys more stuff than anybody I've ever met.
Well, he kind of says that about himself too. I've heard him
Yeah.
say that. Like
Oh no, he does.
yeah.
He does. It's quite shocking at times. He gets obsessed with little things. Like he'll see a record player one day, and then 4 months later, he's got like the best record player on the planet. He's got 5,000 records. He gets a bit obsessed with his whatever he gets into. He gets obsessed with. He does okay. He also does this odd thing that's very funny. I think he has a very kind of John Cleese kind of humor physically,
Hmm.
and he's sort of he's cool, but he's awkward in his own skin at the moment, at the same time. And he
Yeah.
does these things like one time I remember we were all in the green room and he comes walking in and he did a really dramatic entrance, like to try and be funny. And he did this sort of weird duck walking thing. He opened the door and he did his duck walk. Nobody noticed.
Oh.
Nobody noticed except me. I was watching in the corner and he just like, okay then. And he closed the door and left. And I was like, it was so adorable, but nobody saw it.
You did. So you're getting him back. This is what he gets for making fun of you. Not
Yeah.
really doing impressions of
Oh,
you because
yeah, I've heard about his impression of me. I've never seen it, but I've heard it's good.
oh, good. And more than one time, it's the only reason why I brought it up. I'm like, you know what? I always wanted to ask you, how do you feel about it? And actually, when he does it, he'll do the impression. It does sound like you.
I'm not surprised, but you know what? Imitation is the best form of
Yes,
flattery, so
it
I'll take
is.
it. I'll
It
take
is. And it's never negative. It's always adorable.
it. Even if
Okay.
it was negative, it wouldn't bother me.
No. So look, here's some more positivity.
Okay.
Candace here. She says, I absolutely loved this movie last night. My mom even watched it and liked it.
Oh, good.
So, like I was saying, it's a family, definitely a family movie.
Yeah, I think there's
Lillian,
something for everybody.
it is. There is. Lillian says, watch the movie last night. What a wonderful story. Kavan and Emmanuelle were terrific.
Nice.
Yes. So they're showering you with some love. Oh, this is Christine. By the way, actually, Christine is an admin for the Chris McNally fan page. I think
Oh,
her
is it really?
partner,
Okay.
yeah, Christine is here too. But anyway, she's like so excited. She goes, this is really exciting. Fabulous movie. All
Oh,
right.
good.
So they're loving it. Oh, when I said I made because when I was promoting it every day, I put something different up and I did different recipes. And after I watched the movie, I'm like, oh, I should have done lemonade. So I said, I have
Ah,
some
see,
Tara's
good idea.
lemonade here if anybody wanted a glass. That's what they're
Nice.
saying in the comments.
Oh, nice.
Someone said they were having a beer instead. I'm like, well, I could put a little
Yeah,
alcohol in your lemonade.
yeah. You could. Whatever works. Just
Oh,
don't drive.
no, no, no. She's at home.
Yeah.
These are just where they're from, and I thought I had some questions. There were some. I think we answered quite a bit of them. You were
Okay,
very, very, very gracious in your answers. Thank you. Let's
that's
see.
what I'm here for.
That's right. What Kathleen say? I had not seen Kevin in a role like this, playing the part of a law enforcement. He looked great in that uniform.
Thanks.
Oh, I guess she didn't see you as the robot.
No, I guess not everybody. If you're not a sci-fi fan, you may not have seen that one.
Yeah. Christina. Oh, that's the other person. That's the other admin for the fan pages.
Oh, okay.
We love you, Kevin, on When Calls the Heart, and loved you in this new movie.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I get to sort of poach on the fans from When Calls, which is more of an ensemble thing. I know everybody has their favorite.
Yes.
But, the fan base of that one is usually very generous with trying to support us when we do other things on our own.
Yes.
So it's really, I tried to, I am horrible at tweeting and stuff, but I did try to kind of do some stuff last night and liked a bunch of stuff, retweeted a few things. And I saw a lot of Hardys coming out and showing love. So it's kind of heartwarming to see that.
And we use the hashtag Big Sky River, but we also use the hashtag Hardys.
Yeah.
So
you should.
This is a good question, and I forgot about this.
Okay.
She says, "Hey, Kevin, what is your favorite thing about writing? Because you're a writer."
Yes, I use the term a little bit loosely.
No, you're still a writer. I'm a writing teacher, so you write, you're a writer. So go ahead.
All right, fair enough. I do agree with that. I have written some scripts. I've sold some scripts. I have done some pitches with Pascal for Hallmark. So we've done some writing. But the real writing that I occasionally talk about is the sort of fiction stuff that I like to write. I like to write on my spare time. I've tried in the past and pretty juvenile stuff, and I just kind of shelved it a few times. But I recently started again, and I just wrote my first full novel, and I'm just working on trying to pursue that, and I'm 250 pages into my second one now, and it's very, very fulfilling. And one of the only reasons I have this opportunity is the time I can afford to do it because of When Calls. I get to work we've been going for so many seasons that this past year, actually, I was talking to Andrea. She likes to write as well, who plays Faith. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a book again. I used to read a lot as a kid, and I really like books. And so I wanted to try again. And this time, I feel like I've got something to say, and I have developed a style that I seem to like, that seems to work for me. And I've had some friends who are professional editors look at it, and they gave me some really great reviews. So I'm going to pursue publication and see what happens.
Well, wait a minute. We're going to want a copy. We're going to buy it. We will, just because it's you. Don't worry.
I'm not 100% sure I'll publish as myself.
I
might use a pen name, and the only reason I do that is because I think the writing is very different from my acting persona. So it may not be everybody's cup of tea. I haven't published anything as of yet, so there's nothing to obfuscate at all. It's something, and even if I never do publish, I really enjoy it. It's very fulfilling.
This is my opinion. I'm just going to share with you. So I'm a teacher, and when I first started to teach, we literally, this is back in the day, we don't have it anymore, had a morality clause we had to sign off on. And in your outside world, couldn't do X, Y, and Z. Well, before I was young when I first got published, and I already had a contract, and I was like, oh boy, good thing. I don't know why, but I never used my name. And I really did it because the publishing house I work for wanted to just have me with that name, and they didn't want me to take it to somewhere else. Right. So that's why I used the pen name, but it actually saved me because then I could keep writing, and I get it. And it's a good thing. So if you think that I feel you're making the right decision. You'll still feel fulfilled too, though, because it's you.
Oh, yeah. I don't, in all honesty, Kavan Smith doesn't have any ego in this game whatsoever.
Right.
I just write because it really makes me feel good.
Yes.
I
Right.
really truly enjoy it,
Good.
and I'm gonna keep doing it. So
That's a good thing. That's
yeah,
nice. I like to hear that. Good for
yeah.
you. Janice has a good question. She says, on your interview Thursday, you
Uh-oh.
commented about not being a great rider, and it got me to thinking, I can't remember seeing you ride much in When Calls the Heart. I do remember a few things,
Yeah,
but
there's a few.
yeah.
There's a few before Lee gets a car. As soon as we got the
Yes.
car, there was a big push on the show to modernize. They wanted to have the Hope Valley move into modernity. So it was kind of the idea was Lee was the first to get a car. Then we had Gowan get a car, and there's a couple of trucks, and then there's a few
Mhm.
vehicles on set. So once Lee had the car, that was it for the horses. And it wasn't really a riding or not being able to ride one way or the other. I mean, they're really good there on set. If you're going to be riding more, you can take the
Yeah.
horses out anytime you want, and
Okay.
one of the riders will go with you, and you can practice. I know Aaron rides quite a bit. Um, and
Amanda, Amanda rides. She know how to ride coming in.
oh, did she? Oh, okay, I didn't know that. But it's really. I like the horse riding, to be quite honest. I like horses. I like being around them. I find it really relaxing. I feel comfortable on the horse doing
Mhm.
scenes and stuff. It's really just a matter of not enough time spent at high speeds. If I
Sure.
if I were really gonna pursue a series as a cowboy, I would get on a horse and I would go. And I'm not afraid of it. I just haven't done it yet.
You can't be perfect at everything, you know?
No, you can't. You got to pick and choose. You got to pick and choose. I remember when I first came on, one of the things was Lee shows up on a motorcycle, and
Yes.
and I remember Neil.
Looks so handsome. I loved it.
Well, thank you. We drove in on the motorcycle. It was a really fun shot. It was a really cool shot. It was
Mhm.
a great introduction. I think it was one of the best introductions of a character on the show.
Mhm. Yes.
And but the hoops that I had to jump through, you wouldn't believe it. I've ridden a motorcycle my whole adult life. I think I got
Oh,
my first one at like 17, and it was 16 or 17, I forget. But I rode it my whole life. I rode bikes my whole life up until my second son was born, and I'm like, well, this is a bad idea. I should
yeah,
probably
yeah,
ditch
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
motorcycles for a while.
Right, right.
And it wasn't even a motorcycle that they wanted me to drive. It was essentially a bicycle with like,
Motorized. Yeah.
yes, slightly motorized
Yes.
at like 2 horsepower. And they wanted to see my motorcycle license. They wanted to, see my insurance papers. They wanted to see me come down and drive it. I was like, okay, this must be a serious. I thought they got a real authentic museum piece motorcycle and they're just doing due diligence. But when I got there, I'm like, really?
Well,
You
this
want me
is
to? I'm jumping through hoops for this?
it. I know, and now Kayla's riding something similar around. You remember?
Yeah. Everybody else has gotten my motorcycle. Lee's never gotten the motorcycle back.
Yeah. Well,
Jesse,
actually, right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Jesse got it
Yes.
first, I think, and then they gave it to Lucas.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know who has it now, but I know Lee doesn't have it.
Yeah, I know. You're gonna be a dad anyway, so forget it.
True.
She's not Rosie's not letting you on
No, fair enough.
the death trap. Okay, so Christina says, "What has been your most challenging scene in any of your acting journey?" Good question, Christina.
Oof. Well, there are. Okay. Sometimes the Hallmark fans don't want to talk about this stuff,
That's
but
okay. We want to hear it.
okay. But as an actor, sex scenes are very challenging.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
they're really hard to do. Uh, I really pride myself on not being a creep or a weirdo, so
yeah.
I try and do everything textbook and by the book and fully discussed. And
Yes.
nowadays, there's all these intimacy coordinators and stuff
Yes.
like that, which I think is a great idea. But I've done some of those in the past that are so unbelievably awkward. And
That's what everyone says. I've never met an actor that said, "Oh, they're my favorite scene." It's
oh,
usually what you're saying.
yeah, if you do meet an actor like that, run, because that's not somebody you to hang out with.
No.
They're really awful. It's I know sometimes people watch them and you think, how do you do these without
Mm.
going too far? And the truth is they're awful. Like they're awful for both characters. Usually, you don't know the other person. You've just
Right.
met them. Maybe you've known them for a week or two at best,
Right.
and you have to do these things. And they're sometimes I've done some explicit shows, and
Yeah.
some of them is pretty graphic stuff, and it's not who I am as a person. So it's as an actor, they're really challenging. They're usually really embarrassing. Um, and I personally am, I'm not that crazy about them in shows either. Like
Yeah.
it's,
I get
I
it.
think I don't know if you know this movie, but there's I think it's called Life is Beautiful. And the best sex scene I ever saw with these two adults, they walk off through a garden, into a hut. Then there's a time delay and a kid comes running out of the hut. And
Oh.
that's so smart and so beautiful and says everything in a
Yeah.
really kind of interesting, poetic way. Anyway,
Yes.
the hardest things are sex scenes. If I take those out of the equation, um, I've done some physically tough
Mhm.
scenes. I did a scene one time where I was playing a stunt man, and I was trying to rescue a guy who had gone whitewater rafting,
Oh,
and
wow.
they built a fake cave. So it was probably about a 50-foot or 100-foot long cave that was all steel bars and done with kind of like a fake rock on the
Right,
inside.
right, right. Yeah.
And then they to get the water flowing, they put it in a river, the whole thing, they submerged it in a river, and then they parked a jet boat at one end and anchored it to this thing and then just jammed the engines on at me. So I was holding on to things for hours in the freezing cold water with this jet boat just shooting this stream at me for hours and hours. And that was physically exhausting. I didn't know if I'd be able to make it to the end of that day.
Yeah.
So just off the top of my head,
Well, that's enough right there. I
and
mean,
you
women.
know what? At the end of the day, I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
Acting, if you enjoy it, and I do enjoy it, is a fairly. If you can handle the stress of always being unemployed, if you
Mhm.
can handle the financial
Yes.
it's a nice way to make a living. It's exciting. It's different. It's you get to do and meet some really fascinating, interesting people. I talk to my kids about it. They don't ask many questions about it, but every once in a while, hey, Dad, have you ever? I'm like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have.
Oh.
Wow. So and I think about it sometimes. I'm like, it's been a really fun ride.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And then when you don't like doing it anymore, then if you can financially stop, then you have to stop. I think that's with
Yeah.
anything. Yeah. But
Yeah.
how blessed are we that like I'm a teacher. I love it. There's nothing I could ever imagine being
Yeah.
first would than a teacher. And that you love your job, that's like a blessing because many people don't love their job.
You've already won. Like if
Yeah.
you're doing, I say this to my kids all the time. I know it's written in a zillion self-help books, but
Yeah.
you choose something you love and you never work a day in your life. And
Yeah.
that's I feel that way.
True. Which is nice. And you do a good job too, so you'll be around forever.
Thanks. I feel
All
like
right.
I've already been around forever.
No, Starla, she says, this is Starla Rich. She says, Kevin is amazing with his improv and ad lib.
That I am actually pretty good at. I mean, I don't like to
You're
toot
going
my
to
own horn,
agree. You
but
say yes to that.
yeah, I do. I am good at ad libbing, and I like to I pride myself on having a quick wit.
This is they're talking about your dancing skills. So Gloria says, I thought the dancing seemed pretty authentic, and it was. Kevin, I thought you looked like a good dancer. Do you like to dance? Sometimes actors say they're awful dancers, but do well dancing in the movies. I think we kind of like we covered that one, right?
Heard a little bit about it, but the truth is, yeah, I used to love dancing as a young man. I will admit that if I have one or two beers, I'm significantly better.
You are not alone. Many people say that. I guess
Okay,
it kind of
good.
relaxes you
It
and
does.
yeah,
My rhythm jumps up tenfold when I have a beer.
which is funny. Oh goodness, what's Sharon saying here? I'm definitely wanting When Calls the Heart to continue for many years to come. And if they ever have problems for continuing any storylines, they can contact the Hardys because we do. We have plenty of ideas for you. You
Great.
know what? Maybe one day, I'm just going to put this out there and speak it out there. Maybe one day you can write an episode. You have nothing to
You know
say.
what? If they offered, I'd take a crack. I'd take a crack at it. There are things about writing screenplays. It's your the one thing I really like about writing fiction, long form fiction, is that I there are no rules. I had no rules. I make
Good.
my own rules up. With
Yep.
with screenwriting, there are rules, and it depends who you're writing it for. If it's for TV, you have to mind your breaks. You have to write something exciting when you leave, and you have to pull the fans back. So there has to be something exciting when they come back from the commercial break.
Oh
It
my.
has to be timed to, if you're an hour drama, I think it's 42 minutes of actual content. So it's got to,
Yes. Yep.
yeah, is it less? I don't know what it is, but
It is. It's no, no, it's I'm agreeing. It's 42. Yes.
okay, yeah. So it's definitely challenging. There are
Mhm.
shackles. So when I write, I do it very free form. Like I really let my imagination go. With the rewrites, I'll tone it down a bit, but my first draft, I just go crazy. And a part of that is in sort of retaliation or rebellion for the job that I do, where I have 1,000 people telling me what I can and can't do. So
I get you. It's sort of like your freedom. That's why you love it because when I would have a book that was, I had a producer put out there and I would be like, oh, and I have a new character and you know what you want them to say and you can't wait. And it's like your alone time and nobody can knock on the door and no one can bother you.
true.
All right. We're almost wrapping this up here. We
Sure.
have Brian. Oh, Brian is a big fan.
Okay.
And he and I are going to chat tomorrow and we're going to review the movie.
Oh, great.
Good.
I hope it's
It's good
listen.
stuff.
Oh,
It's
good.
all good stuff.
Okay, good. Good.
So, Brian St. Cabin, of all the characters you've played, which one is most like you? Good question.
Boone was actually quite a bit like me. I'm honestly not much of a cowboy, but
That's okay.
what was at the center of Boone was uh, somebody who has lived a life. He's got some experience.
Hmm.
Family comes first, and he's got a good sense of humor and tries to get the most out of every day. And I think that's a lot like me. There's some of Lee in me as well. He's always my wife would disagree with this. I was going to say there's something optimistic in Lee all the time, and you probably wouldn't agree that I'm all that optimistic. But I think that even if we talk about Deputy Andy, there was part of the innocence in him. That was a character trait
Mhm.
that I kind of brought along to that. Is I wanted him to be really sweet and sincere, and my sincerity may not be as sweet as Andy's, but it's equally a part of who I am. So I think that those characters, Boone was really close to home. I think of all the guys I've done, that was if you allow that maybe I'm not quite as cowboy as he was, I think Boone might be as close as we've gotten to Cavan.
You know, I think Boone is a cowboy, but I think of more of him like he was just a man and a dad who happened to live out in the West.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean? He was he and you were a sheriff, I get that, but he wasn't so Mr. Cowboy. He was actually
exactly.
I know he was like very sensitive
Yeah.
and in tuned. He was in tuned. So that's I think why I really liked him a lot.
Good.
Um we do have one when calls the heart question, and then we can say goodbye to everyone. So they said, you, I think it's Jill. Let's see, I'll pop it up here.
Okay.
Kevin, if you have a say, and I think people have asked you this before, do
Okay.
you want a boy or a girl or one calls the heart? Or you can say, you can answer this however you want.
Funny you should ask.
Okay.
We just did EPK the other day, which is short for electronic press kit on set. And that's when they
Oh,
come and they ask us questions and
yes.
they play it.
Yes.
We're doing
Mhm.
promos and stuff for the show. And they come once or twice a year and they ask questions. And this year, that was the prevailing question was, what is
Yes.
the baby? What is the baby's name? And I,
You don't have to reveal that. We're not
no, I'm
asking.
not going to. Believe me, I'm
I
not
know
going to
you
get fired in a heartbeat if I
don't. I
reveal anything.
understand. We
But
get that.
I will say this: I do
Mhm.
know what the sex is, and I
Oh,
know the name. And unlike my TV wife, I'm not going to drop the beans.
okay.
She already spilled the beans, but we're going to probably have to edit that out of the EPK.
Okay. Okay.
So I do know what it is. and I do know the name, and I will say this: we didn't know, and Pascal was on her phone one day, and we were shooting. We were shooting. I forget which scene. It was like second day of shooting this year, and she went, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "Oh, that's not bad. That is bad." And she goes, "No." She told me the sex, and she told me the name, and we both went, "Oh my god, it's perfect."
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. So we're both equally excited, and I think it's the perfect choice.
Oh, we're excited for the whole storyline. It's 10 years, 10 seasons rather, because it's not really 10 years, but 10 seasons
10 seasons. Yeah.
and 100th episode. Are you allowed to clarify this for me? If you can't, just say I cannot. And I
Yeah.
didn't even think to ask this ahead. I was counting myself and then people, there's so many things out there. How many episodes have there been? Like, where are we when season 10 starts? What
Yep.
episode is that?
Well, we think now what we've gleaned from this. It's complicated because
Yes.
the few Christmas episodes we did
Yes.
count as two.
Yes.
So there is a few schools of thought. Some are like the Christmas ones don't count at all.
Right.
Some are like they count as one. Some are they count as two. My understanding and what the producers have come up with is that it's probably episode two of this season we're shooting now, either episode two or three.
That's what I thought. It was episode 3. That's what I
Okay.
thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems to be the prevailing wisdom on set. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. I don't care. I'm happy. I hope we do 100 more.
Yes,
But
you
what
will.
my understanding is, or what we were told, is that it's probably either the second or third episode of this season we're shooting now.
So exciting. Ah!
It's really exciting. I feel very privileged to be part of this group. I remember I almost. It's not that I didn't want the job, but I didn't understand. I didn't
Oh,
understand when I first got the job. I
mhm.
remember saying to not Martin, to Neil Fernley, the director who directed me in the first episode, who I'd known for a while. So I went up and I was like, "I'm not sure I understand what this show is about. I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't know if I'm getting it." And he kind of leaned in. He's like, "Come here." I'm like, "Okay, what?" He goes, "It's science fiction. It's it's really science fiction. It doesn't really exist. We're creating a world that doesn't really exist. It's a world we hope could exist within us all." And that explained a lot to me. And I shortly then after met some of the Hardys, and I realized what it was that people saw in this show, and what they got out of it. And I think it's a very valid and worthwhile thing to do. And I've really bought in whole hog, and I feel so privileged to be on the show and to be 10 seasons in as an
Mhm.
actor is just crazy. But just to have the fan base, and like I mentioned earlier, a fan base that is predominantly positive. My kids don't go online and read horrible things about me.
No.
Don't
Mm-mm.
most of the stuff is pretty nice. Like, "Hey, you did a nice job. Hey, I like you in this. Hey, I like you in that." It's
That's
there.
nice.
There are worse ways you could spend your life.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. You've been here with us for like an hour. This
Well,
is
that's fine. I figured it would be about an hour.
wow. We love it.
Great.
Oh, all right. We can say good night to everyone, then I'll say good night to you in the studio.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for your patronage over the years, and hopefully you stick with us, and hopefully we can make more, a lot more.
And those that haven't seen it in Canada, it's this Friday, the 12th
Yes. Yes.
at
Tune
8.
in.
Yes, at
Tune
8.
in because I want to do more. so
Yes,
so
yes,
everybody show up and let's shoot a couple more of those.
they will. All right. Good night, everyone.
Right.